Welcome to our guests and to our viewers. You're now tuned into Education in the Community, and I am your host, Kinara Sankofa. And today we will be discussing a very powerful topic. Today we'll be discussing the mental, spiritual, and physical parasites affecting the Black community. And today I have three wonderful, powerful guests, and to my very far left, I'd like to start off with inviting my sister and friend, Yaya, is here. Miss Yaya is a consultant, a healer, a naturalist, and dealing with over 20 years of experience in the herbal and nutritional life or arena. And also, she is a student of the world-renowned Layla Africa. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. It's good to see you.
It's good to be seen.
And to her immediate right, we have my friend, brother. It's been a while since we've seen each other on the show, but I'd like to welcome Cypher Zero Saba, Universal Soul Warrior. This is his second time being on the show here. And he is also an entrepreneur. He has his own clothing label, which is called Yafat Culture Wear.
Yafat Culture Wear.
Yafat Culture
Yes,
Wear.
sir.
Wonderful. And is also has his business in the home recycle business as well, correct?
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you, brother.
And to my left, I have a very powerful, wonderful lady as well, Miss Akinu Nafu Aselada. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes.
How you doing today?
I'm
sister?
doing wonderful.
Thank you for being here. And Miss Lada, she's an advocate for life force and energy, get into your energy. And then also, she's the co-founder of Spiritual or Spiral Collective. Would that be correct?
Spiral Root Collective, yes.
Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
So we're going to get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. We were talking about, Cypher Zero and I, we talked about what is going on in the community. And so we decided to call this particular show the spiritual and mental, as well as the physical parasites dealing with the African world. And so I'd like to ask our guests, I've already looked it up, but I want to ask any one of you, what are we talking about when we speak about parasites? And how is that, in effect, affecting the community? Anyone can answer the question if you like.
Well, I'd like to, from a health perspective, a parasite is an organism that does not live on its own volition. It has to have a host in order to function. The human body has many parasites. Some are beneficial and some are not. And so there, on the physical plane, it takes many forms: microbes, actual worms, fungi. And on the spiritual plane, it takes on energies that feed upon the life force of people. So like a quote-unquote spiritual vampire, that's parasitic. And then on the mental, it's thought patterns, programming, subliminal suggestions, misperceptions, misconceptions, all types of things that live in the mind, but are not necessarily feeding the mind, maybe feeding, often draining the mind.
So do you think that we are aware, when I say we, speaking of the Black people or Black community, do you think that we are aware of these parasites that are happening to us on a physical plane and then also on the psychological plane? Are we aware of these things that's going on?
I think not at this time, the way that we were perhaps maybe 60 years ago, when the grandmothers, mostly the natural healers of our community, would each season, they would give a dose of something to either castor oil or castoria or pine tar, who knows, any herbal disinfectant to rid the body of worms. And it was regular and it was done consistently. And that particular habit is no longer in the minds of people that I interact with. People don't think about it anymore.
So are we conditioned to not think of the past or our culture from a holistic perspective, going back to the motherland and dealing with some of the things? Sir.
I'm glad you asked that question the way you asked it, because I think now we begin to get into the other type of the world parasites, in a sense. the intent is to suck up all of the nutrients, the minerals, the fuel, the energy from the peoples of the planet to, for their own benefit.
You say for their own. When you say their own, could you elaborate when you say their own to our audience and to us here? Let's, as you know, when we come into the studio, okay, so we pull no punches here.
We don't hold any punches
We don't
back.
hold anything back because we're at, in my opinion, as a people in a state of emergency.
We are. The
Okay.
world is in a state of
Of course,
emergency,
of
but
course.
definitely us. Yes.
Definitely us.
Yeah.
So in order to heal this problem that we're having, we cannot afford to not be truthful in our own opinions because we're going to be speaking about opinions, we're going to be speaking about facts. So we cannot afford not to tell our story or tell the story as you may see it and be correct with it.
That's right.
So please speak freely. And when I mean freely, speak on it.
So it was really just a matter of working on downloading framing at that point in time. But I wanted to also be clear. I want to touch on what you said, but I want to go into what you asked earlier before that, which was in terms of the loss of history or culture or the lack of memory, the amnesia to a degree, which is all intentional. In fact, a Virginia House of Representatives delegate from the 1800s, not sure of the name, I can't remember it right now, or the exact year, but it was in the 1800s, and the statement was, by now we have closed off every avenue through which light can enter their minds. Surely they will be as beasts in the fields. So in that sense, the parasitic nature is to cut off light, to take the energy. What other energy was being used? The energy of our physical bodies, but as well as our minds, what skills that we brought. A lot of people think they just snatched people off the continent, but no. There were a lot of skilled people. People were observed and analyzed. It didn't just happen. They looked at who they were bringing, and you.
How did we allow it? If we are the first people of the world, not the new world, but the planet, how did we allow it if we were the first psychologists, medicine man and woman? How did we allow the trick, the parasite, to enter into our spirits, into our bodies per se? How did it happen?
May I speak to that?
Let's get it. As one of the guys said, let's get rid of the rumble. Let's bring it.
Well, as we know, even with in the plant world, because if we can take it to where it can be neutral, in the plant world, there's a life cycle. There's the seed, and then there's the little sprout, and then there's the plant, and then there's blossoms, and if it's a tree, then it grows, and then it hits a peak, and then it starts to go back to the earth. If indeed there were a first people, then they too, the seed, the sprout, the form, and then we reached a peak. And we have reached several peaks.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
And we have had several downsides. I suspect from the fact that the planet itself is so toxic that this is the worst down spiral that has ever existed.
And probably one of the quickest too, because America as a nation is the amount of time is so small.
Yes.
Whereas if we go back to, for example, ancient Kemet, the last known historical moment that we know of, it lasted as a civilization for 3,000 years. With all of the invasions, with inner chaos, it still stood culturally and sacredly strong, which is even why invaders would come in and copy the culture. You go and you invade someone, you occupy and you dominate them, but you mimic their cultural and spiritual ways. So that's power.
Okay. So we in effect allowed this to transpire. You said that there's a cycle that happens, that you reach the pinnacle, And then that cycle is kind of like a tree. It never dies. The root still is there. Or the flower, it will fall off and then it will recycle itself or reincarnate itself.
The genetic memory.
Okay. So we have a genetic memory. So are we on the upswing or are we on the downswing? Because if you look at what's going on in our community, or can we call it a community?
Common unity? I don't think so.
Why not?
Common unity, we don't have it. Not in large enough mass.
It also goes back to that communication. And Yaya mentioned those remedies. I was a recipient of some of those remedies on a consistent basis. I cannot say that I carry them on to my daughter, but I have restarted because I have gone back to the teachings, of my grandmother, who always had an almanac on the table, who did things a certain way. But the communication piece wasn't there. It wasn't communicate why my mother did these things or why my grandmother did these things. And so that piece, it wasn't, it was just like, okay, it was something that we did. I didn't see the value of it. And sometimes when you don't see the value of it, then you don't carry on the tradition. And something like that is very important because when you're infested with physical parasites, then you are more susceptible to the other metaphysical parasites.
So could we, I won't say blame ourselves, are we lacking or in some respects, if it's up to us to rid of these parasites, we have to have our own institutions. We have to have our own educational systems. We have
our own castor oil.
Pardon me?
Our own castor oil. Our own garlic.
So how do we get back to that if we don't want to take the medicine? You would hear, for example, the Jewish community or folks will not ever let the Holocaust go unchecked or unheard. They always remind you.
Never
whereas
again.
We as a people don't want to hear about the past. Now I say that we cannot stay in the past. We have to go back. That's exactly what Sankofa means, is to go back. But we also need to go forward. So how is it that we refuse to want to go back and deal with those tenants that are causing the problem, with the parasites?
Well, that's symptomatic of being infected.
Right.
Your judgment is off. And I want to speak to the phrase you used as far as we allowed it. In nature, which is the grand scheme of everything, organisms are weeded out. That's the way it works. And so when you're in a downward spiral, if you're weak or tired or famine or flood, whatever, that leaves you more susceptible. It does not mean that you're allowing it. It's just you're susceptible. And let's face it, all life forms want to continue. So then the parasites, that's their upswing. Our downswings, their upswing. And then they're like, ooh, opportunity, get it. Okay, so they do this. It is for us to recognize the symptomology. Then we could do something about it. However, if we're going to deal with worms, parasites, they give off secretions. Their secretions, their byproduct, their waste material is in our bloodstream, and it's ammonia. Now, they use ammonia salts for when people are unconscious. They put the smelling salts under the nose, and it wakes you up, blasts your brain, really. So we're walking around physically in a state of blasted brain. It's just wide open. And so things can come in and attach themselves to our thought processes. So it's not so much a matter, I suspect, it's not so much a matter of allowing or not wanting. It's more a matter of being in the infection and being one of those organisms by nature that says, ooh, something's off. Because everyone is not going to survive.
So how do you
Right,
bring
thank
the
you.
balance if it's about being off and it's about recognition and not being in denial? How do we bring it back then? Because we are looking at, 5, 6 generations and deeper of the unknowing. How do we bring the balance back? How do you bring the healing back when we have so many different institutions and getting so many different layers of information that's not proper information for the soul or for the spirit? How do we bring it back?
I think by going straight to the root
How do you
and
get to
getting
the
back
root?
to loving ourselves. And because I think that there has not been a great enough value placed on us truly loving ourselves. Because when we do that, then we can take an investigative exploration into what that really means on all levels.
How do we understand what love is? How do we understand what love is? I mean, we have some folks out here thinking that, you know, to speak negatively is love. Okay, so how do we be able to differentiate what is love, true love, the root of it?
You have some folks thinking you can buy love.
Okay, all right, so how do we get back to it then? And I agree with you. I do agree with you, but how do we get back to that?
Yeah, I think we always look at things that, I mean, what she's saying is absolutely correct.
Yes.
We have to begin to do it, though, on an institutional level. We have to do, one, what we're doing here, what you're doing here, and thank you again, brother.
Appreciate
you. Know
you.
what I'm saying, for doing the show and having your brother on. But this is a start, or this is one aspect, media, because we're affected, as we know, by all different types of parasites in all of life's activities. And so so we have to stop having these silly debates about whether things are intentional or not. In one sense, it doesn't matter. What are we going to do for our survival, period, is bottom line, because we really don't have to argue about some of the nuances that people argue about in terms of who's doing what and all of this. What are we as a people going to do? How are we going to build institutions? How much fire and heart and will and courage and perseverance are we going to have within amongst ourselves to stop doing some of the things that we are doing?
What if you don't know Cypher Zero? What if the masses of the people don't even know that they are infected or affected?
Well, that's what we're discussing. We already know that they don't. So that's why those of us who carry light, those of us who do know, she hit on something like that. We have to become even stronger. We have to bear weight. You know, we have to carry the burden of producing. We know that we're at war on every level. The Panthers were really, the Black Panther Party, they were really an organization about what? Stopping the police brutality, the police murder that was happening against our people in the 50s and the 60s into the 70s. The breakfast program is modeled after them. That exists now across the nation. They fed over 22 million children or something over that time as they spread with the breakfast program. They were about, you know, creating safety zones, educating and feeding folk. But because of this fear from folk with also a parasitic nature as a collective on the planet, they deemed them to be, you know, communists, which is a whole nother discussion, because I'd rather have something that sounds like communal beingness, you know, that has the word community and common and communication in it versus some whatever the hell democracy is. A lot of DE means to subtract or take away from, and we don't know what democracy means yet. When you go to the Greek root, it's still it's not a clear wording. Even when you go to the root of the word, it's not clear. It doesn't, you know, they talk about Sanders, you know, in terms of the politics right now and how he's a social democrat. So people are awakening to the sleep that this world put on us in terms of things that are very
really believe
basic
that the
and
mass
common.
of our, when you say the people, are you speaking the world is awakening? The U.S., the folks here in the U.S., because when we're talking about this issue, this problem that is happening with black people, and
It's worldwide.
and I'm going to say this, like Dr. Umar Johnson has stated, we have to be unapologetically unafraid to be African and discuss the issues that are going on.
Because that's been an issue.
That has been a major issue.
It's been taboo to talk about us, talk about our issues, talk about our problems.
Why? Why are we afraid to talk about it? Why are we afraid
I think
to...
that's shifting, though.
You think it's so?
Oh, it definitely has shifted.
Okay.
Or is shifting.
It has shifted and is continuing to shift. And that's, we have to be in our power. And that awakening, that quickening that's happening, especially with technology and what people are calling a YouTube university. Because you basically have information at your foot tips, and it's blowing people's minds. People have access to information they've never had before.
And it's moving
and
fast.
I think that with the building of institutions, I was reading in other countries, they teach at an elementary school level meditation, the importance of loving yourself, the importance of knowing that we're all connected. Imagine learning that in an elementary school, coming out of a public school education with a good sense of self. That makes a world of difference. And it's, I agree with Cypher. We do need to build our institutions because the education system is not teaching that to our children.
Right. Would you like to chime in on that, sister?
It's my experience that we all become the educational system. Okay, so for my own physical existence here, I was born with some type of malady, and over the years, I've learned to first neutralize that malady. Then at one point, I had chronic bronchitis and asthma, and so by the time I was in high school, I was like, I don't want this anymore. So I know firsthand, up close and personal, because I'm very curious, I did the research. Asthma, that's an Ascari parasite. Pass through the umbilical cord, pass through body fluids, pass through, sweat, whatever. Once I started comprehending, then I could start undoing, and then I become what it is. I model it, I project it, I speak to it. I'm just it. So people talk to me all the time. And it throws me off because I'm in my own little yah-yah land. And people would come and say, oh, blah, 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 blah. A young gentleman came up the other night and he was like, I like your ankh. Now this brother came from behind me. I like your ankh. And I'm like, oh, thank you. Click, 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 click. Oh, of course, I am it. I am the awakening. I am the recovered. I am a part of the solution of this. When we become this, it radiates.
Come on. Yes.
It radiates, people feel it, people can smell it, they want some of it. How you doing? They right there. So yes, we are going to build physical institutions because that's just what humankind does. And we build long-lasting edifices, things that cannot be denied,
And that's
because
what time
that
it
is what we do. First, though, we have to be it in order to conceive it.
And I appreciate you speaking about the umbilical cord and the transformation or the energy that goes through the umbilical cord. We were just at
Dr. Joy DeGruy.
Yes, and she was speaking about the umbilical cord, the information traveling down. As a matter of fact, she was speaking about the womb, how it is a storehouse for collective information.
The genetic memory.
And so if the womb, if we can speak on it, and either one of you can speak on it, I'm still learning a lot of this here, but the womb itself, if it is not protected, if it is not nurtured, if it is not fed good vibration, then it passes on what is called, the sister Afu, Queen Afu, call it negative power, negative vibrational power through the womb. So if the woman is giving birth to this power, let me ask you, Cypher Zero, how do the man play a role into this negative vibration power into the womb?
Well, we have to recognize that we have to look at things on a mental, physical, and a spiritual level. So the world has been taken off base. Going back to the title or the topic of what we're looking at, we can discuss things in different ways, and we're really saying the same thing. So what my sister has said here, she's really broken down the Bible. She's really broken down the Quran. She has really broken down the spiritual wisdom teachings in the world. We are living in the time of revelations, what Sister Akinu was talking about, and the quickening, the information coming fast. We're in Revelations right now, which means revealings, the revealings of things. It speaks of a nation being born. She made mention that when we build, especially as Black, Asiatic, African people, we build for, I'm just going to say it this way, we build for eternity. And so we build long lasting. We talked about, and I'm going to come right back to what you asked me, but we talked about Kemet being a civilization that lasted for 3,000 years. Because, in fact, I was a part of ASCAC in the 80s, the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations, and one of the conference, one year, one of the conference titles was Building for Eternity, after like our ancestors, you know. And so that's spoken of in the scriptures. We don't know that a lot of that stuff as Black people, as the root people, as the seed people, that it is talking about us. That when it talks about the concept of Christ, she spoke on that when she said that we become it. If we change that over into Matter, just Beckham. You know what I'm saying? Kim is Black, B is pure Blackness. Everything comes out of that. Black Lives Matter. So, I mean, now we mixing up the knowledge, right? We going deeper. Some people, so going back to something you said earlier, people are ready for kind of the way that I just spit that out and kind of mesh those things together. People are ready to go on that level. We've been fed base knowledge, and they're really ready for the next level. So as man, we have to recognize, I'll touch on one that's very touchy for a lot of people right here, right now. If the Creator is the same today as was yesterday and forevermore before that, then when did woman come from man rib? How the hell did that happen? If the Creator is organically, naturally, logically, and rationally works in this organic and natural way, how and when did the shift and the change happen? Why would woman come from man rib in the first place? When?
I don't know.
So if I may say, first of all, everything comes out of a womb. Everything comes out of a womb.
Well, I'm in total agreement, but when we are talking about people that have been conditioned just the opposite, how?
Kicking and fighting, right? So, so how are we going to get there? Because we have to teach, we have to come to truth, and the truth shall set us free. Clarity shall set us free. And one of the things that has to happen with the man is he has to begin to, we have to love ourselves to love others. We have to love ourselves. How you going to love the Creator God if you don't love yourself? How you going to love the woman, man, if you don't love yourself? How the woman going to love the man if she doesn't love herself? And so we have to get to some truth, though, first of all, and we have to tell the truth about that. Those are Johnny-come-lately stories that don't come from us. You know, so the Creator has not changed. You know what I'm saying? Everything everything comes out of a womb.
So you speak in male, female energy is all of one yin and yang, and so to speak.
In a sense, one of the things that I'm saying though is that we have to totally re-educate ourselves, because man has to face up to truths about who he is and who the woman is. I've talked with a lot of brothers, so this now we're getting right to what you asked me, because if we're going to nurture the room, you have to truly love yourself in order to love the woman who houses the womb. She's the womb man.
That's right.
Therefore, we have to deal with the truth of who she is, and she's first. It was a female or a masculine, feminine type. It was a man with a womb, because everything come out the womb.
A lot of
I don't
men.
care about them Negroes.
We're gonna have a whole lot. We gotta be real.
Them Negroes gonna fall off if they don't get with it.
Okay, you know what?
Women can stop producing us if they choose to.
But you need that male energy. You have to have that male energy.
They're gonna produce the right ones when they get rid of the foolish ones.
You think so?
Man.
You really think so?
If we don't step up our game, so that's why you and I are sitting here.
Well, I'm in agreement partly, but I'm saying this: the masses of I'm assuming, I don't like to assume much, but I'm assuming the masses, based on how we have been taught from a spiritual or religious perspective,
even just on a society,
the masses of our folks are not going to buy that the woman is the head of the household, sort of.
Well, nobody said that. I didn't say that.
Well, I'm speaking, but in some respects you did.
But that's almost like assuming, because that's not what I said. We want to be clear. I said that the woman was first in creation. The womb is first.
w-
Everything comes out of a womb. Even if
Not
we
from
go,
a religious
no, even from a
perspective.
religion, let me give it
Okay,
to you.
break
Even
it
from
down
let's
then,
go to
so our
Bible
viewers
and
can
Quran. Let's
understand.
talk about the spirit of that which we call God moved into what?
I'm sorry.
Moved up on the void. Moved upon the waters that were in the void. The void is the universe and or the omniverse. That's the womb.
How do you come to that conclusion?
What is the void?
I'm just asking
The
because
universe and or omniverse is that void, and the water was there already. It tells you that in the book, as well as other books and in science.
which book? The Bible?
The Bible, the Quran,
I
other
know
holy
that-
books, and even in so-called science. And I'm tired of actually calling these folks world and the stuff that they come up with science, because science, the root of science is siere, which means to know.
So in other words, you're
the
saying
only-
it's a
the way that you
pseudoscience.
begin to know, I mean, I don't even want to call it pseudoscience. I don't want to use the word science. They don't know nothing. Our children don't know nothing. This stuff is false. We finna break this world down.
A lot of false science, yes.
You said it's
We'll call
a
it
lot of-
false science then, pseudoscience, whatever. All right.
False.
False knowing, yeah. False
Okay.
knowing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you speak in institutions and building our own institution, but if we're the largest consumers in America, I mean, we're buying FUBUs, boo-boos, and everything else that you want to, and we're not putting the finances back into areas where
Because
it
we're
needs to be.
that.
fools.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Now come on, let's get with it. Let's get with
dollar
it.
may not, I mean,
Let me address that because I hear that a lot. I've been hearing that for 20 years.
Okay.
About what we're not doing.
uh-oh.
How do you take beings that are sovereign and then you reduce them to subhuman existence in the name of profit and money and expect those beings to have a respect for profit and money in their genetic code? You are really wanting something close to the impossible or some miracles, which all of it exists. It is natural for African descendants of enslaved people born in America to have a genetic discomfort with money because we were sold for money. We were bought with money. How could we possibly embrace money when it has been our death?
Let me ask you this. Can we embrace it with a new theology? Can we
A new
embrace
philosophy.
it? Can we embrace it, or do we need to embrace it from a spiritual perspective in order to dig self out of this situation?
Well, I think it's necessary. We have to at some point. I think we can embrace it.
Okay.
I think we can embrace ourselves. I think we can embrace new ideas. I think
Right.
what everyone comes through a different door of knowledge. And what is necessary is that we start bridging the gaps because everyone has a piece of the puzzle,
Right.
but not all the information. And so we need to look at people as whole people and look at different realms of what's going on and start giving that to people because some people are really good on the health thing and on top of it have no idea about the energies and the metaphysical. You mentioned earlier about the womb and the sacred womb. And it's interesting because if you look at how a male and a female give each other energies and where the chakras go back and forth like a snake, when that doesn't happen, the sacral chakra gets depleted in the woman, and that affects money, that affects how we create, that affects so many different things, but we don't have that information.
Come on.
And Yaya mentioned that she was afflicted with some ailments and it had got, and I chuckled a bit because I was like, oh, that's a door. When we're afflicted with something, that's how I came into my my knowledge because I had to do a whole bunch of research and experimentation and trying this and trying that and going to this workshop and that. And because trying to be whole, getting back to my whole self and loving myself. And I think that once we do that, then we can walk our path because each one of us have a divine thing that we are called to do. And when we
Divine
truly
assignment.
love
right.
ourselves and we get into our divine assignment, then these things that the world is talking about, if we want to build an institution or we want to, go out and do something else, a garden, whatever it is to do, but we need to be in our divine assignments.
You know what she's saying, let's just take it to the bigger scheme then, in terms of what you're pulling and pushing on and the whole nature of what we're talking about. We know that there's the parasites on the planet, and we know that energy comes from the metaphysical, metaspiritual realm, and we know that we're affected on every level. So it's a matter of us where we're headed back forward to now in mass as a whole. And that don't mean everybody when we say that.
Right.
A lot of people gonna fall off. The weak gonna fall off.
Right.
The weakest link gonna fall off. What our sister spoke to earlier in terms of organisms in nature, and interestingly enough, the word nature, let's look at it because we're reclaiming stuff. And so nature is very much related to the word netter or nature from the first language, the Medu netter, which in Greek they called the hieroglyphics. Hiero being holy, glyphic meaning language, words, pictures, picture writing, whatnot. So even they called what our ancestors were doing holy or sacred, which is what we call it. So Medu netter.
Oh, that's some backwater. You're going to, listen. You're going too deep, okay? You're going off the
That's
wall
what the
because
people ready for.
we have to be, so in other words, we have to really school.
Yeah, we can't be like Reverend Hogmaw and Reverend Porkchop no more. The people not even trying to go
You
there no
know,
more.
we can't be like them.
No.
But I grew up on the hog. Okay,
But
so
you
I'm
don't need it
okay.
now.
I'm okay with the hog. Now I'm just playing the advocate here. But really, on a serious note.
So we're transforming, is what we're talking
Okay.
about. And as a whole, and it's in the books. It's just different languages. When she mentioned different doorways, so because we're a lot of times people argue and they're saying the same things, but it's in different language. You might be speaking the Islamic Arabic language, and coming from that religious slant. If we don't look at the things that appear to be differences, we can see that you're saying the same thing in your
We have a lot of
Christian
commonality,
dialect.
in other words.
Yeah, but then if for the black man and woman what's critical, see, is that all of that is Johnny-come-lately stuff, because we're the root. There's a prayer in Islam called the Al-Asir prayer. It's the prayer that they do at midday when the sun is at its highest point. Well, let's look at the language. Al-Asir. That sounds like Asar to me, which the Greeks called Osiris, which is what? When man, and especially man, stands upright, is in his 90-degree alignment, when he becomes aligned with the life force and gives true respect and love and honor to the woman. And is aligned with the life force, he becomes God in the flesh. That's Asar. And so in Islam, they do that now. Also in ancient Kemet, at the which Washington, D.C. is modeled after, at the mall with the lake and the tekanur, the bin, or the obelisk in Greek. Our ancestors called it the bin. And so, but we did baptisms there all day long. So if we study our own history and culture, if we study the true knowledge of the world.
You say if we study our own language, we have to
Our own history and culture.
We first have to build, as we were talking about, the institutions.
Well, we have one institution right here, and it's called Kinara Sankofa Productions.
You know,
I think we also need to spend more time in nature.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I think
nature?
that is one of the most significant things
Yes.
that we can do.
Right.
Is
That's
go
real.
and just be quiet, observe, see what we see, show respect and admiration for what we see,
You know what's so
and
deep about
listen. Listen,
Yes.
Okay,
because
so
we
it's
have-
up really
we
up
don't
to-
really need to express all of these different information from all of these things, because no matter what I say or Yaya says or Cypher says, it's still on some level programming someone else. But we can't, it, to a certain extent, just sharing information, but we have to integrate that information, and we have to be still and we listen. What's inside of us that wants to come out? We have this intuitive, talking about our womb. We have we have so much wisdom just right here inside of us.
But it
we
has to
don't
be
sit,
sparked.
We don't sit still. Well, yes, that's why
Even
activators
taking
such
somebody-
as myself,
right.
or you and all of us,
Right.
we can activate people, but it has to, at some point,
We do need
still
to get in
become
nature.
organic to that individual.
Right. For
Because,
sure.
you know, it's so interesting because they say that everything you ever want to know, you see it right in nature. You know, as above, so
And
below.
it's
as
already
within.
in you.
Okay, so let me
Yeah.
ask you this. Can we do that, all what you were speaking of, in the institutions that our children are currently going to?
But why are we limited to the ones that they're currently going to?
Currently going to.
Why are we limited?
Yeah. See, because I'm working on
I'm
Saturday.
asking-
She and I, in
I'm
fact,
asking
are
a
working on.
question.
No, I know,
But I agree.
the question is why? Because you limited it when you put the question out there. You
Yeah,
said to the institutions that they are currently going
to spark
We- we're-
dialogue in
Right.
regards.
So here go the
It
dialogue.
depends. Well, are you when you say? Ask the question one more time because I want to know what children you're speaking.
I'm
from.
speaking about African children within the Americas going to institutions not getting fed the proper information spiritually,
Yeah.
psychologically, physically as well. So the institutions those are the public, we'll just say the public institutions.
I would say in general, no. There have been minimal strides to bring gardens into the schools,
Curriculum.
which some of the students have access to and participate in. But when I say go out in nature, I'm not speaking of a garden.
On concrete.
And so I think it's very difficult to do that when our system is set up to pass tests. It's not set up to for wholeness.
Okay.
So, and it's something we've discussed before too, in terms of that it's not, we have to come into ourselves. So instead of a either or, we have to be both and.
Right.
And that's more of our nature. That's more of the indigenous nature.
Right.
So
Right.
it takes the communication, because when we look at the word communication anyway, look at the words that are in it. You see common unity. The only way to come to common unity is to, one, be stuck on a desert together somewhere, to be stuck somewhere in some situation together, right? But there's some type of communication that's going to go on. If it's just body language and facial expressions, but eventually, of course, by nature, we speak words, you know, and so in those words, we call it in this language today communication, and so and that means a common unification through the language. So through this dialogue, this is a very big step in that whole process of all of the questions that you are prodding, but also in terms of what Sister said and what you're asking, it's very important to go to the root of education. The Latin root is educere, which means to pull out or bring out. So like Sister is saying, and as we've all said, so knowledge is really within us. It's not about training us. It's about taking us through processes. Let's keep it as simple as what Sister Akinu said. If we just, and you know we used to do the camps, and we're going to be doing our camps again, as well as Saturday Academy and Summer Academy. We're working on that right now, and after school academies. But if it's just grabbing the children, a group of them from your community and your children, like my son used to be with me all the time, and taking them out to nature. That alone, there are some youth who don't get out off the concrete.
That's right.
Okay.
So that alone begins a process.
Right. You wanted to say?
Yes, I wanted to tie that into the matter of us being the consumers and not managing the money game. When our youth, and I'm talking about our toddlers, when they have access to the abundance of nature, that scarcity doesn't set in. And without scarcity, there's really no need for money because we can barter, we can exchange, we can do what we will have commerce, as Dr. John Henrik Clarke stated, on a massive global scale, and all of us are wealthy.
So in other words, we're going back to the origin when you start looking at the Nile
Well,
Valley.
it's
It
a
was-
wave,
right,
a
right,
wave.
right,
Even though
right.
you know the brother spoke to the universal water, it is a wave, and so we waved down. Hopefully, this is the bottom, and we're going to wave back up.
You said
those
something.
of us that survived this purging,
That's real.
because that's just the
People
way
have-
that she does it.
Let me ask you folks this. Do you think that we have, this is the bottom? Because when we look at this perceived attack, or is it an attack?
Not just our bottom, though. This is the bottom of this age of things, or this world as we
Yes.
know it.
Right.
It's
That's what we're feeling. That's what
that's
we're
what's
actually
happening right now. It's
seeing.
a shift, yes. So the dollar is going to fall. So we better be creative, as well as we better take those of us of light and those who are willing to see the light and hear the vibration and want to touch some of that light, as Sister mentioned earlier, want to get with it and gravitate towards, so that we can build. That's that building process, and we're in it. Because as an economy, though we're not unified as such, the amount of money, that money you're talking about, it ranks within the top 10 nations?
Yeah.
You know, we're spending $300-something billion a year? A trillion. Oh, goodness gracious. You know what I'm saying? So as that comes together, but while that comes together, at the same time, there better be some of us thinking on another level to be able to transform too and shift.
You said something, because you made my sister sit back and smile. And
Yeah, we can't just, it's not just about that green dollar.
so it's not, okay.
We have to be creative.
You know, what's really interesting,
What's that?
the fact that we don't hold the dollar sacred as a collective
Right.
is the undermining of the dollar.
Right, right.
Without us having the worship for it, it is becoming devalued globally. Everybody is fighting for, okay, let's sell barrels of oil based on this particular, what is the word they use for a money something. So the dollar for us here in the so-called Americas, the dollar is antithesis for us. And we are caving it. One way or the other.
In Spain, the
are
dollar
caving
has.
it.
You look at Spain, you look at Greece. They're falling. You know, and from an economical perspective, and I believe, and help me out, if that is going to be the case here within the Americas.
That's been happening all around. Right now in France, they are having their own Occupy Wall Street. It's going on right now. The tear gas is being thrown. Folks are throwing bombs. It's worse than what was happening with Occupy. That's going on right now. Just within the past year, it was happening in Greece. Now, if y'all know about the new papers that came out called the Panama Papers, that just exposed all of the world leaders hiding billions of dollars in various ways, offshore accounts and hedge funds and all of that. Yeah, and they call it the Panama Papers because it's a legal company in Panama that has been around for a long time, and you know, you have to pay to hide secrets. That's what this world have been doing, you know. And so all this stuff is coming out now. It's been leaked, like 11.5 million documents. So we're in the time of revealings. We're in the time of revelations. The Swedish prime minister or whatever had to step down because he was exposed. And they're protesting over there right now.
So
they
in other
want a
words, you're
total
saying
change
this,
of their government.
In a nutshell, you're saying that this whole system is going to have to fall.
Yes.
It's gonna have to
So,
fall
like,
in
I'm
order.
not sure exactly what her attachment is to the dollar, but our image not on that dollar. Our symbols are used on the back of that dollar. That money, that dollar carries an energy that does need to go. It's meant for us to do something else. So I don't know how you, I like what you've said about it. I feel the truth and the power within what you said about it, but I'm not trying to cling on to that dollar. If anything, I want to work with some folks. Let's create some different stuff. Let's do some bartering. Let's create our own. Let's create money with Harriet Tubman on it. Let's create money with Queen and Zinga.
Are you talking
on it.
about paper money, or are we talking?
I don't care
gold,
what we create, as
silver?
long as we back up the value of it, as long as we make it work.
Okay, and that's pretty right. Okay, and I think that's one of the things that was going on in Africa when Gaddafi was killed, when he was bringing a lot of the heads of states in Africa to use the minerals, use the diamonds, use the gold, the actual natural resources within
Which are
Africa.
being sucked up by parasites, right?
Amazing.
Oh, okay. So
You know, this talk about money, and it's kind of, I appreciate that, but on a spiritual level, we have our current running through us.
Come on.
Our chi, our energy, our current. And in a physical plane, it manifests as currency. We can that's what we have to
That's
get up.
what you-
That's our power. Because out of that comes us being able to
How am I
manifest
going
in
to feed
physical
my
reality.
children? How am I going to buy my house
Exactly.
without
You're going to build your
You're
house.
going to buy your house with your creativity,
Come
which
on.
comes from your current, your energy. And when you're,
Oh,
I
and
can't
when-
go to the bank. I can't go to the bank.
We're talking about the
with-
hereafter, man.
Okay, I cannot go to the bank for the viewers out there right now. I can't go to the bank, ironically speaking, with this current, this vibration that you're speaking about. If I walked into the bank, I'm not being to be rude, and say I need a loan with this currency that's going to.
Yes,
I'm not
I
being, I'm not
disagree.
being,
Yes, you can.
Okay.
I
It's called a
disagree.
business plan.
Explain it to
It's
the.
called a
disagree.
business plan.
It's called a business plan.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I disagree because
Okay.
when you seek yourself and when you commune with, the cosmos, your higher power, your God, when you commune, you're given what you need.
And God, we
And
trust.
you-
That's on the dollar
we-
bill.
we-
Okay. And
You
God-
are given what you need. So you may not, I don't have any money today. I need
Right.
to, instead of stressing and being all frantic
Come
and
on.
everything, I need to sit and meditate. How am I going to get this
So let
money?
me ask you, is that
I
system has-
guarantee you
Okay.
an idea is going to pop into your head, and you're going to be able to put that into fruition. But if you are full of parasites
And fear, or what have you.
And fear.
That is a
and-
parasite.
Right.
and,
Oh, okay.
You
I-
know, you got your womb is not, your colon is not clean, and all of these
Wow.
other things. You're
Come on.
going to be
Wow.
blocked.
Queen of Food talks about that.
I need to go here, and excuse me,
Yes.
I really need to go here.
Go ahead,
Please,
pull it up,
just
brother.
continue to talk
Pull it
and
up.
dialogue, because what has come, and these are some borrowed glasses, fortunately and unfortunately, they're not mine, but nevertheless,
So
nevertheless,
while you look at that, brother,
Yes.
all the life activities, and we've discussed it here. So
Okay.
what? We have to touch each other. We have to talk to each other. We have to literally touch each other too, because I really wasn't even thinking on a literal sense and touch each other. But we do. We have to touch. We're missing that. A lot of black families aren't touching that. And when you look at indigenous cultures, they touch.
Yes.
Touch is important.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we have to touch our children again. We have to
And
touch
each
one
other.
another again.
Right.
Yeah. And so.
And ourselves.
Right.
Yes.
And our, yes.
I know
so-
very few people that actually just stroke themselves.
I self-massage, yes.
Okay.
Ooh.
I want to
Yeah.
touch back on what you were saying,
The
this
colon.
vibration, the womb, and this
And then the colon.
energy, and all of that. And like I said, these are not the perfect glasses for me, but this sister's book is called Sacred Woman by Queen Afua. I want to show the audience this because it's a very powerful book. I just recently picked this up, and I think it's important that we study some of these things, and particularly you were speaking about the womb and this vibration. It says here, the condition of a woman's womb also directly reflects the condition of a woman's mind, spirit, and action. The womb is a storehouse of all of our emotions. It collects every feeling, good and bad. Today, we have collectively reached a state of negative womb power. Unnatural living, unhealthy lifestyle penetrate negative womb power, and in turn
Burger King,
supports the
McDonald's.
conflicts of human, reflects the conflicts of the woman's womb. The condition of a woman's womb also reflects the condition of all the relationships, no matter what those relationships are. When a woman's womb is in a healthy state, her life is a reflection of this balance. And we're talking about the balancing of the world. We're talking about going into an institution, being able to borrow money without, pardon me?
Credit.
Without credit.
Credibility.
Or credibility. So in order, we have to rebalance the world. If we're rebalancing the world, when I say we, because I'm totally in connection with my femininity, understanding that male energy is yin and yang. How are we then going to get the masses that are unafraid to understand, or that are afraid to, and I'm going to speak about men, because we are truly afraid to touch and talk about that vibration. We don't even want to recognize it. So how do we get past that?
I thought we went here already.
No, we didn't.
It's going to be some work.
Is that work?
Yes, ma'am.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was
I
just
just
saying
wanted
it's
to
going
say
to
it
be some
again
work. Because
for the
what?
audience that just came in, they probably didn't, and for the viewers that just walked in the house, they probably didn't understand it, so I wanted to repeat the question.
The first part of it is, and thanks and appreciation to you again for the dialogue for people who tune in, because information is coming at a rapid rate now. People
Right.
who you never know who's going to tap into this at any time.
Exactly.
Man, you know what I'm saying? And what it's going to do for them. Sister Kinu may spark them. Brother Sankofa may spark them. Brother Cypher may spark them. Sister Yaya may spark them. Just the whole
So
dialogue.
you're saying
and
we simply
interaction.
need a spark? You say the spark is already happening.
It's already happening. And the thing is, we are part of a collective consciousness. So I have a thought, and somebody over in Africa feels that is in my vibrational frequency. They're sparked. They're in alignment. They're like two. They might not know it, but if they are, because I've had that experience with a friend in Ghana once.
Wow.
We had that connection. But they say that the internet is one collective mind, and what we need to do now is create one collective heart. And so we really have to increase and expand with intention our heart. And so light workers all over the world are doing that work, and it's exponential, the awakening that's happening. So I think that it's already happening.
Okay.
And we just have to keep doing our steps.
And we have to keep doing our stuff.
We have to do
Okay, we're almost out of time, so I want to ask, you get 20 seconds each. 20 seconds. What's the next step? What do we need to do to continue to move forward?
Well, from my perspective and the work that I do, we will have to detox. Those of us that are going to move forward, we will have to do what I call a Trinity detox. We detox the mind,
Trinity detox.
we detox the emotions, and we detox the spirit. And I do have a protocol for that. And that's what it's going to take for those of us that are going to continue.
What about those people who can't afford it?
Okay.
We don't even know who see you with him about the afford. How can they not
that's how
afford
people
it?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen,
How can
we
they
have.
not afford it?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
It's your 20.
You got 15.
I got 15. Okay, so I am with the sister. We must do whole life activities, and so in the educational institutions that I am working on, and my sister here is working on with me, we tap into the whole thing. We start with socialization, hugs and/or handshakes. So we get that touching piece in. We tapping in spiritually, mentally, and physically, historically, culturally, and on every level. So just to build institutions.
Building institutions.
Cleaning up everything.
Okay, wonderfully said.
Spiritually, mentally, and physically to include the environment.
Thank you. Sister Lala?
Meditate, get out into nature, detox, learn your own love language, love yourself unconditionally, and spread that to every single person and being in your world.
Okay, I'm going to say this as the host. Choose your music. Choose your music wisely.
Spirit music.
And thank you all for coming into the show.
Thank you.
You are now in tune to Education in the Community. I am your host, Kinara Sankofa, and good night.